good number of people there. Yeah, so this is going to be different than a lot of the other Angular talks that I've given. You know, this is a back-end talk, but it's something I'm super excited about. And it's something that my brother, by fortuitous chance, I got the chance to work with him on this. So I am the CTO of a company called GetHuman. I'm the co-organizer of the Angular meetup. And this is my brother, Mike.
And hi there, I'm Michael Welpley. I'm actually fairly new to coding. My experience is I've done a decade as a chef in San Francisco, and just last year I decided to do a career change. So I went to Dev Bootcamp in San Francisco, graduated earlier this year, doing all sorts of random projects, and then I came out here in September and interned with GetHuman, and been doing this chatbot project.
Did you start the?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to give kind of just a high-level introduction to some of the concepts. So have you guys heard about chatbots at all and some of the stuff related to what's happening with chatbots in the universe? Brian's going to need a little bit there. Okay, so we'll get into all that. Talk about just conceptually what's going on, right? And I'll get into like a little bit a layer beneath of some of the technologies involved. But then I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and he's going to get really involved in the actual code, the stuff that he's done to build out bots for GetHuman. Okay, so yeah, if you are paying attention to any of the different companies or techies, there are these things that have been going around, especially this past year, about chatbots, about how chatbots are going to change your life. But the thing is that when we talk about chatbots, the first thing we have to discuss before that is the underlying platform that chatbots are on, which means messaging. And messaging is something that has been steadily increasing in usage over the past couple of years. Probably everybody in this room, I would imagine, is on Slack, yes? Slack, yes, okay. As well as probably like 5 other messaging platforms, whether it's just plain SMS or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, or like there's a million different ones, right? Snapchat. Whatever it is, messaging is huge, right? And it's not like something new. It's been around for a while. Like there used to be, actually, who knows what this is? Okay, a couple people. All right, so you've all dated yourself. Anyone who raised their hand is the old people that have to leave. No, this is IRC. So like back in the day when like we were youngins, you would be able to jump on these like little clients that ran on your desktop, and you talk to other developers and techies and everything like that, right? And it was great. The only problem is that there wasn't many people on this. I mean, it was a very niche thing. But it was great. Yeah, to some degree. Yeah. Well, there certainly wasn't non-techies like your mom and dad and all that on this. So the reason why messaging in general, back then in IRC days as well as today, is popular is because it's this platform that's immediate and personal, where you can immediately talk to another person and actually interact with them, not necessarily a web page, which is pretty impersonal, or send an email, which is not immediate, and then kind of get a response back. And now, actually talking on the phone is immediate and personal as well, right? But for some reason, like especially for us being a lot of people in the tech industry being kind of introverts, messaging somehow feels even more so than talking in person in a lot of cases. So that's like the main appeal with messaging, right? But the thing that's different about today as opposed to the IRC days is that today everyone's online. So it's not just the people that are technically savvy, it's your mom, it's your dad, it's your grandma. So whenever you do need to connect with someone, most of the time, you can have this instant connection, if nothing else, through just like SMS, right? And then the other big distinguishing factor is that businesses are starting to spend a lot of money with messaging. They're starting to pour money into messaging, improving a couple different areas. So one thing is just the platform itself. So it's not just SMS, it's not just some of the like basic texting and messaging platforms. It's also all these new ones that have kind of cropped up over the years. And then companies are built around them. I mean, that's what Slack is doing. That's what a bunch of these other companies are doing. They're making money off of the platform itself. But then you have a whole bunch of other companies that are hooking into these platforms for a couple different reasons. One is for sales. So there's a company here called Drift. Has anyone heard of Drift? A couple people. Okay. So Drift has a couple of ex-HubSpotters, David Cancel, Elias Torres, who have created this little tool that you can put on your website, and the whole idea is to get a message directly with your customer when they visit your website, and to increase sales, to get them to buy into whatever your product you're selling. And it's a super effective platform. I think the sort of paradigm of using this as a business has grown, increased, evolved, improved over the years. Another thing is customer support. So this is an area that GetHuman is intimately involved with. We help people with customer support problems, and more companies are offering messaging as a way of dealing with customer support, so that you don't have to call them. They actually, okay, here's a texting box, or usually something baked within their website or whatever. But that's an effective way for them to deal with you as a customer. And then the other thing is just an inbound marketing thing. So this is a more newer kind of raw thing, but it's people building tools, basically free tools, as part of these platforms that you can use, and then people use it as kind of inbound mechanism. So this is areas where companies are starting to invest more and more and make these messaging platforms even more useful than they were before. But the big question, the big problem, and this is where bots come in, is how does it scale? Because you want, as a company, from the company's perspective, you want to be able to provide these one-on-one personal interactions with everybody. But the reality is, if you have a lot of customers, if you have millions, GetHuman has 2 to 3 million people in the business every single month. If we provided a way of people directly chatting with actual humans, we'd be overwhelmed. We would have to have huge call centers of people just to be able to handle that. And some people, by the way, do go down that route, but it's super expensive. And so bots were created as a means to be able to handle that, so that you can actually provide some of that kind of one-on-one interactions, but in a more scalable way. So the way this is super high level. Mike's going to get a level deeper than this into the code and whatnot. But just at 9,000 foot view, typically you could have a platform, a messaging platform like Slack, that you can hook into with webhooks and different ways that Mike will talk about, that they're actually sending you the messages to your program, to your bot program. And then typically, but not always, there's some sort of natural language processing that's involved. The first thing you have to do when somebody sends you a block of text is you have to figure out what is that block of text. So if you're writing a program to analyze that text, there's certainly hacks we do for sure about doing regexes and trying to discern in a more programmatic rule-based way. But typically, most people who are doing more advanced bots will use what's called natural language processing to break down a big block of text into its parts to know, okay, this is the noun in the sentence, this is the subject, these are the different pieces that then you can feed into some sort of machine learning. So machine learning is very typically part of this cycle, where you, over time, you try to make some predictions, the bot does, about what the user is saying, and you feed that into some sort of machine learning mechanism like TensorFlow. TensorFlow is one of many that are available now. And then over time, your bot gets better and better at doing it. But even people that do all this stuff well today, it's not perfect. This is something that's still kind of evolving, especially providing a bot that's actually smart like that. So many of them have this fallback of a user, an actual human, a real human, sort of a trapdoor in case that the user gets totally confused or something unexpected happens, that there's always this ability to actually have a smaller set of human users that can kind of go through the bot and work things out with the user. So this is a typical setup, but it's not necessarily the only setup. In fact, for this stuff, there is a huge ecosystem. So this is a smattering of the different types of companies, and we'll have some links in the references afterwards. But if you are going to build a bot, there's a ton of help out there for you. So some of the stuff that Mike's going to go into, he built it at a very low level from scratch. But if you wanted to use just a higher level API or a higher level service and pay them to essentially build your bot for you, and you just kind of you could almost even not write any code at all. I mean, right, like some of the initial versions, you can just like tell one of these programs like API.ai, for example. That's like one of the more popular ones. You can basically get them to do it all for you, all the interactions with platforms, and you just give it the rules. So that's like an easy way, but it does have some limitations, which is why we didn't rely on that. You know, and really what you can do so there's a simple path of just using one of these platforms and hooking it to that, and then you don't have to write any code. Or there's another path that is what we try to do, which is, okay, maybe we don't need right away natural language processing and machine learning and this real-time interactivity with the user. Like, we'll maybe add those over time, but what if we just write our own super simple rule-based mechanism in Node, so it's just our Node program that's interacting with the messaging platforms, and that's it. And just using it as like a learning mechanism for ourselves of like how it works connecting with these different platforms and how it can evolve over time. And then later on we'll add some of the more advanced features. But what Mike's going to go over is going to help. What he went over building for GetHuman, I think helps because it doesn't have a lot of those more advanced stuff that is very powerful, but it creates a lot of complexity. So like this is a good like low level see how the basic functionality works.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you, John. So this is just a broad overview of the bot. It's really simple. It's just built out of Express and Node. And the objective is it connects the chat platforms, currently supports Facebook Messenger and Slack, and it connects it to the GetHuman services. GetHuman's got a big database of customer service information, like contact info, common problems, links for how to solve them. So the bot just connects the two. It takes requests from the platforms, accesses the API, shoots back a message. Diving a little deeper into goes in there, goes back there. Diving a little deeper, we got the brain, which describes all the essential services like common code to all of it. There's a Firebase database for real-time database. The bot handlers are a set of code, one file for each chat platform, all the platform-specific code. And then the action handlers are for each the different types of action you take for each request coming in. And right now it's simple. It's just process the request, send to GetHuman, or ignore it. Just let's go through the workflow here. So we get a webhook request from the platforms, hits our brain, accesses the database, remembers everything it needs to, sends over to the bot handlers to turn it into a genericized request, a normalized request, back to the brain. The normalized request goes over to chooses the right action handler, depending on the type of request. If it needs to do a search on the API, searches the API. API returns a big data object. Action handler returns a pared down data object, just what it actually needs to know for the message back. And then the brain sends it back to the bot handler to convert it to a platform-specific payload to make the response. Goes back to the brain, sends over back to the platform. You get a message back. Bounce it back real quick. All right, I've got.
Yeah, one thing I just want to mention on that. Yeah. Go back for a second. Is that like the reason why Mike created it in this way is that, and this is just a sample implementation. Like obviously you can create your bot any way you want, but for us, the actions, like we wanted to create the same functionality on every messaging platform. Like so, it actually does the same thing, but each platform has their own format. Each platform has their own kind of unique characteristics. So the bot handlers kind of like handle getting rid of those like unique things for each platform, but the action handlers actually do the specific actions that are the same for every single platform.
Yeah, so if we decide whenever add a new platform, just gotta add a new bot handler file. Have a couple of code selections. It's a little pared down and edited just for clarity. This is the code that is in our start function. First, we just have a selection of the bot handlers. an array of the Slack one and the Messenger one. The action handlers for each type of action, again, solve, which is accessing the API, and ignore, just to fluff it away. Because sometimes a lot of the messages come in that are you don't need to process, like you get a message received confirmation, and you're supposed to do something with it, but you're not actually supposed to send a message back yet. And then we kick it off by initializing the database, and then starting the server with the bot handlers, action handlers, and the state of the database.
And the reason why the state's there, by the way, is that everything's asynchronous with these bot platforms. So like, if there's one particular user who interacts with you, you actually, like, the only thing that you know that it's that user versus another user from that platform is that they send you like one particular ID. So you have to, you're responsible on your own for like keeping the state for that particular user and knowing that like from the last time that they sent you a message to this time. Like they're not on a per request basis. The platform doesn't tell you everything of the history of that user. So that's why the state kind of stores that. We're storing it in Firebase, but like whatever. In some ways, you're responsible for storing the state somewhere. Oh, were you going to ask a question?
Yeah. What's an example of the sort of action that you're doing? Like in what way is this interacting?
It sends a request to GetHuman as an internal API to access the info in their database. So we just send, like, we figure out from the request, like, what's the company name and any other info, and then send that query over to GetHuman. It returns a big data object.
So I type into Slack, how do I get it?
Yeah, Verizon or whatever, or some company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm using Firebase, which is an online database. Have you ever measured the latency between response? Because when you store data in an online database, obviously the response time is going to be high, as opposed to storing it locally.
No measurements have been taken. This is pretty early on in the project, and we just ran everything asynchronously, just making sure one or another in the proper order, so it might just freeze up if it has to take a while.
The Firebase, it's a real-time connectivity, so like it's initialized at first where you establish like the connection, and then any changes to the database are automatically pushed to the bot.
Okay.
So it'll constantly have the latest up-to-date information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's a small, the reason why we're doing that is it's small, but the data set is small. It's just storing like a small set of state data.
And what's the time to pull the data from Firebase and then deliver it to the user?
Well, you know what, the thing that you're thinking about is probably like the Firebase thing, it doesn't matter because that's just during system startup. Like the timing doesn't matter because it's only when you initially start it. But the thing that matters that I think you're talking about is that there is a backend call to the GetHuman API, and that takes like a second or so, or yeah, something like that. But it's not that big of a deal because from the user's perspective in the messaging platform, when you type a message, just like forget about the internals, like what Mike was showing, like when you're typing a message into a messaging platform, like you don't get like an instantaneous immediate response. In fact, when you do, it's kind of like weird. Like it's a little bit eerie when you like instantly see like a message back. Like your expectation is that it takes like a couple seconds for the person to like type it up. So it's not that big of a deal like for the bot to take a couple seconds to figure out what to send and then send it back.
Okay, and diving a little bit into the key parts of our server code. This is what happens the process when a request comes from the platform. Receives a post request, and it receives all the bot requests. So we set it up that the Slack platform goes to post to Slack, Messenger goes to post Messenger, and so what happens is grabs the post, we grab the context from the request, just basically everything about the incoming request, because there's all sorts of different data objects that come in from each platform. We use the context and the selection of bot handlers to figure out which bot handler is the appropriate one to handle this. We use the bot handler to normalize the request into a common style data object. And the reason we have it as a plural, a normalized request, is that they can come in bursts rather than just one request at a time. Like it can come every 10 seconds, you'll get a whole array of different requests from different customers, different types of requests. So you have to deal with them in batches. We send back a 200 response immediately because it's a little quirk of the chat platforms that they just want to know that you got it right away and that everything's okay. So before you do anything asynchronous, just you send back, it's all good, got it. But then we're going to send another request later with the actual message back. We iterate over all the normalized requests. And we first choose an action handler for it. Again, we see from the context what type of action is justified depending on the type of request coming in. We use the action handler to process the request. If it's ignore, we just pass false objects down, so it does nothing. And this is if it's we're going to do the data query. We hit the GetHuman API. GetHuman API returns the data object, and then also in this step, we pare it down to the minimal data that we actually need. Then after that, we hit the bot handler with the response to generate the payloads, which are the data that we're actually going to send back in the request that goes back to the platform to send the message. And then we finally—
And it's plural there because sometimes for certain actions like the responses, you actually want to send multiple messages back to the user. Like just from like, it's a UX thing that like,
right.
You know, the user sometimes like, you don't want to send everything in one chunk of a message. Sometimes you want to split it up to multiple messages or even sometimes staggered over a period of time.
And then finally, just send it back. We keep the context all the way from the beginning just so that we remember what came in from the initial request, and that gives us the information to send it back. Now, some notes on each platform. For Messenger, first of all, there's a lot of formatting constraints. There's character limits. You can only use— there's actually no options on the type of font. You have to really work within the tight restraints that Facebook provides. And it gets pretty annoying when you want to like give a substantive message back. You have to be creative. A lot of moving parts in that you have to hook up the webhooks from there is your Facebook page, the Facebook app, your own app, and then any other APIs you hook up into. And you just have to make sure that everything's talking to each other in the right way. And in order to make it public facing, you have to submit it for an approval process. So before that, you can have— the only way other people can interact with it is if you specifically add them as testers in your app. Now, for the Slack integration, on the other hand, there's a lot of things you can do with just the type of messages you send back, the things you attach to it. Like, they give you a lot of leeway, and it's actually pretty easy to do. A lot of powerful capabilities, including what I built was what they call a slash command, where you invoke a specific command and then type in your query and it returns results. It also enables you to do a listener that listens for certain keywords and then triggers an event. And also you can build a bot user, which just acts like a robotic AI entity. Again, in this application, I just did a slash command, simple query. And it is easier to share. You can add a add to Slack button to the page of your choice. And as long as you master a little bit tricky OAuth process, you can enable other people to add the bot to your teams. You do also have to submit it for their review if you want it in their app store. All right, and now it's time to actually show off the bot. Appreciate the robot fight for a minute. And then, okay. Let's first look at the Slack bot. Okay, so the Slack bot, again, you add that to your team by going to a landing page that we would have to install. And you have to have the admin access to add it. And then what you do is you invoke it with the slash command GetHuman. And let's blow that up some. Oh yeah, microphone. Yeah, you can hear me a lot better now. All the way back to the beginning. Shrink that down again. And one more. Okay. Bit of lag time there. Once more. and we'll do a search for, say, Sprint. It takes a minute there to hit back, and then there we go.
You're scrolled up.
Okay. Blow it up.
Do another.
One more blow up. There we go. So what turns back is a list of the top issues that a customer faces with Sprint. Links to fix this issue for me. It basically goes to GetHuman they provide a paid service to solve issues with you. And more allows you to just find out your own information for contacting them. Turns up contact info for the company, and turns up other suggestions for maybe you meant this company, maybe you meant that company. Again, I have not implemented natural language processing, so you have to prompt people for the specific input. So that's a type without it. What do you have an issue with? GetHuman, blah, 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 blah. And it says you have to guide people to give you the right input when you can only process certain types of ones. You have to just be very specific and tell them, please just give me this type of thing. Yeah, let's take a look at the messenger implementation. Again, I'm able to access the messenger implementation because I'm already added as a user on it. And here, I'm going to say I want to look for Verizon. The reason it's not replying now is GetHuman has a different requirement on their Facebook Messenger page in that they want actual humans to be able to reply to messages. So instead, you have to prompt people to give you the right input. It says, want to talk to our bot? Tell them, start with bot, and then name them the company. Oh, barely tell it. It says, start with bot, followed by the name of the company. Bot. And there we go. And this is an example of the very limited card structure you get back with Facebook Messenger. This way we have it in scrolling cards, followed by the contact page and this little button that triggers another search. And we have a little help route. In case someone thinks to type help, I'm like, yeah, sounds like need help. So I mean, that's basically it, what I've implemented so far. There's definitely some areas for improvement. Been working on this for a couple months, but gonna keep at it. So stuff I want to implement. First of all, natural language processing. Be able to interpret whole sentences from people rather than prompt them for very specific input. I want to capture feedback because it's kind of a time-consuming process to specifically email people, hey, try this out and tell me what you think. Instead, just include like a help route and then automatically save that. Personalization, which remembers people's chat history, other info that you can capture from the various platforms, and personalized experience. Payment processing, so that GetHuman can start making money more directly off of it rather than having extra steps towards people. We mentioned that GetHuman has a paid service that helps people solve their customer service issues. Complete the approval process so they're public facing, and then start adding more platforms. So if you feel inspired, you can visit my GitHub repo. It's got installation instructions, how to adapt it to your own project, because it provides a nice template so that if you want to use it to hit your own APIs, you can basically copy most of the code and then adapt to yours. And then a set of links to how to learn more. Also want to note, I'll be returning to San Francisco in the next week and searching for full-time employment. So if y'all got any leads, you can definitely hit me up, especially for building bots. And yeah, that's about it. Do we have time for questions?
A little bit.
Okay, anybody got questions?
Yeah, so I was curious, did either of you put any thought into integrating, having generic-sized bots for personal assistants as well? So for your Echoes and your Google Home.
Yeah. That's definitely the next step.
text in and out, right?
Yep. Yep. No. So for sure, Amazon has an open API for that, and then the Google one it will come out soon enough for Google Home or whatever. So yeah, that is something that will be next on the list as well, for sure. And it's not too bad. The thing is that it's all about getting the generic mechanism in place, and then you know the thing that those platforms provide, like the Amazon Alexa, for example, that platform, is that they do like the voice side of things. So like as long as you, from a textual standpoint, have all the stuff to handle like somebody typing into a messaging platform, like the Alexa platform handles like the text to voice translations or transformations and everything like that. So it's not too far away from this to that.
Yeah, two quick questions. First question is, does Slack or Facebook provide you any user information, and can you use that to filter the response based on the user?
Facebook provides a very limited set of user information, and Slack can actually provide a lot more information, depending on like whatever you've shared in your teams. There's a little tricky process into like you have to specifically request access for the teams, and then the admin installing it has to approve it. But
it's all OAuth based. So like, you know, as you are installing stuff, it like prompts the admin to be like, okay, are you sure you want to reveal all your private information?
Yeah.
Click here.
And the logic behind it, you said you use a GUI for that, or like when I type in Spring, what's handling that logic?
On our side, or?
Yeah. I wasn't clear on your diagram of the code base, if it's the bot handler or the action handler.
Our stuff doesn't have a user interface. It's all like just an API that Mike wrote. Okay, yeah. It's all faceless.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, guys. Forgot about that.